Okay, so back again with part 2 of the opening range breakout, and today we're looking at using Orderflow as a filter and seeing if we can improve the edge using that. So I've redone the data with ES rather than NQ because I think the Orderflow should be a bit easier to read on ES. And I did think about exactly how I was going to do this. I ended up going with quite a mechanical way of looking at it, really, which I don't think is the ideal approach, but for the sake of a video, I think it's a lot clearer what's going on. And I think you can kind of start mechanical and kind of refine to a point where it is more discretionary. Obviously, that's easier said than done, but we are going to be looking at it today in a slightly more mechanical way, but you'll see what I mean in a second. So I actually recorded this part of the Excel sheet up to here a few weeks ago. I don't really remember exactly what I did here, but it looks like I've split it into buys and sells. These ones here are just only taking the ones that are at least 20 ticks, it would seem. So you're seeing a similar kind of thing. The buys look better than the sells. Now, for the order flow itself, basically I've just taken the raw table here and I've just added in these columns. And I've got some filters here that I'll show you in a second. But first I'll tell you exactly how I'm doing this. So I've not split it into buys and sells for this part of it. What I've done here is I've got these 8 different columns. And all of these I think I probably could have done mechanically, but I will show you exactly how I've done it. I did go through it manually, so it took forever. But anyway, let me tell you what they are. So clean. This is basically, let me show you on the chart. So this is, in fact, I'll leave that on for a second. So this is the area we're looking at, right? These first 3 candles in the 5-minute chart. Now, if it's clean, it will break out of the level like it's done here. This is the breakout. It'll do it without testing the level like it's done here. So this hasn't broken out, but it has kind of come below and not closed below. And that for me means it's a 0 in the clean column. And I've basically just added stuff here that I think could be relevant, basically, right? This part is not technically order flow, but I've added this as a filter. So anyway, 0 in the clean column, 50 close. So 50 close is basically taking a Fibonacci here. We take it on the level and we go to the extreme of the candle that breaks out. And we say, do we close at or below the 50% level? And this is a no again, so this is going to get a 0 in that column. With the idea being that you might want it to not have a large wick here because that kind of shows a bit of rejection beyond the level, right? That's the idea here. HVNC, so this is, if we look at this small period here again, and we look at the highest volume node within that area, and we say, do we close below that point? Now again, the idea with this, and this is 1 for this one because the highest volume node is, it's kind of hard to see here, but it's going to be one of these 3 here, or one of these 2. It's probably that one right there on the blue line. So we definitely close below that. So we're going to get a 1 there. And then what else have we got? So HVN max. So this is whether this highest volume area here is the highest of the whole candle. Now you can see that it's not because these are marked in pink here. Yeah, so that's that part. None of that is order flow necessarily, but I've included that as part of the filtering. Now, one thing they say in the video, right, or at least they imply, what you're looking at is block orders, right? So I've got this indicator here. This is a built-in NinjaTrader indicator. It's called Orderflow Trade Detector, and I think you have to pay like $1,000 to unlock all of these, which I did at some point. I don't think it's really worth it. I think you can make these by yourself, but I didn't really realize that at the time. So yeah. But basically what this is doing is it's looking at block orders. I mean, you can put it as different settings. We'll put it on block right now. And then you'll see these, it doesn't really show up very well on these charts, but on a normal candlestick chart, it shows up a bit better, and it's got these bubbles here. Now, I thought for the sake of testing, this is not the best thing to use for a couple of different reasons. One is that if you're looking at big orders, most of the time people are going to split their orders up, right? So you're actually not going to get any of these bubbles. And two, just generally using the bubbles, I have had them on my chart for a while, and like, I don't know, I don't think that they're that reliable necessarily. To me personally, I think just using delta is a bit easier for me and a bit more consistent. So what I've ended up doing is I've got these candles here. These ones are ones that I've made myself. Now it's not finished, but it's basically a footprint chart, right? And so I'll just show you the settings, what I'm looking at here. I've set it up in such a way that it will only print a color if we're above 100, right? So if we're above 100, it's gonna print it. Now what you can do is you can set it up so it's got a scale, a kind of color scale like this. And if you did it like very low, then you'd see a bigger scale like this. But the way I've got it set up right now, it's only going to show one color for the sake of testing. And I'll show you what we're doing with that right here. So I've got 4 different columns, and basically these are looking at, so if we take the signal candle, which is here as an example, we can see that we've got blues and we've got pinks, but what we're doing is we're splitting them up based on whether they come before or after the close, right? So in this case, we've got 1 blue before the close and 1 pink. I'm including the close itself as well. So this would go in the first column, this pink one, because it's along with the direction of the breakout. So it's pink going down along with the breakout. That's a 1 in the first column. So that'll be a 1 here. And the blue would go here. And I've called it aggression and absorption. The idea being that this is aggression here and this is absorption because we've got a blue and then we've closed below. And then we've kind of got the opposite thing in the other direction, right? So this is almost absorption on the other side. So I've put that as absorption there. So that's 2. And then if we had, let's say, 3 blues, 1, 2, 3 there, then that would be a 3 in this column, right? And that's basically all we've done. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, my hypothesis going in was that if it's clean, it should work better. If it's beyond the 50% close, it should work better. If it's beyond the high volume node, it should work better because we're not having rejection. And then if it's the max, that should also be a positive filter. This should be positive. So aggression should be positive. Absorption should be positive, perhaps not as positive. And then these ones should be negative. That was the hypothesis going in, right? So I'll bring up the table here and we can look at the results. So if you just look across the whole of 2025, this is where I did it, just 1 year, because I was doing it manually, right? It took a while to do all this. So you can see pretty good start to the year and then not too much at the end. Now I've looked at these filters. Obviously it's these parts here, you can filter them. And I've also included these, which is this one is the first 2 added up. So this is both aggression and absorption, which are happening in between the breakout and the close of the candle. And then this is the other side, so in between the extreme and the close. And then this one is just all of the aggression, or all of the, like if you're having a bullish breakout, that would be all of the bullish nodes, bullish delta nodes, positive delta nodes. And then this would be all of the bearish or negative delta nodes added up, right? So if you use all of this as a filter and just seen how different things look, right? So no wicks testing level prior to breaks. This is the clean filter. That showed pretty much no difference. Closes on or past 50% point from the level to the extreme. That shows pretty much no difference. The high volume node between the break and the extreme is the max of the candle. And that's slightly negative, right? So what that shows is you don't really want the high volume node to be between the break and the extreme for whatever reason. I don't put a massive amount of stock into that, but okay. that's what that showed. Positive delta between the break and the close, no difference here. So this is the one that I thought would have the biggest difference, and we don't see any difference. Negative delta between the break and the close. So that actually was quite positive. Just a little, well, not quite positive, it was a little bit positive. So that's basically absorption. And then the other delta filters, no difference. Footprint filters combined. So high positive or negative delta between the break and the close. No difference. And then between the close and the extreme. So I would have thought this would have had a negative effect, but it has a slightly positive effect. Positive delta total, same thing, all delta total. So just anything that you see between the break and the extreme, just any of these, like the more the better, basically. Well, not the more the better. You can see it works best between 4 and 9. Now, how much do I read into all of this? I'll show you the tables, actually. I'll show you the graphs themselves, right? So that's this visualized here. So obviously that's the graph with no filters. And then, so if we don't have the high volume node beyond the break, it looks a little bit better like this. And what you're going to notice actually is in these filters, when it starts to look better, it's just that you're not losing as much. So I don't know how much stock to place in that. But anyway, this is absorption between the break and the close above 0. So that does look a bit better. And this is kind of quite a simple filter, I suppose. Like you just need at least one of them. So maybe I'll put a slight bit more stock into that. Delta's near extreme. So combined positive or negative delta between the close and the extreme. Now I'm using positive and negative relative to the candle, right? So if you had a bearish candle, positive delta would be actually negative or bearish delta in this case. Or you can just assume that I'm talking about a bullish break and just invert it the other side. So hopefully that makes sense. So you're seeing much the same thing on these filters. Positive delta total, and then total deltas on or above level. So these look very, very similar, these filters. And in fact, if you combine them together, it doesn't necessarily work as well, which is not the best sign, potentially. It does cut out a lot of trades as well. So I don't put a massive amount of stock into these. This is the best filter I have. Now this cuts out a lot of trades. So this is negative delta total on or beyond the level. So minimum of 2, maximum of 5. And then we've also included that it must have at least one absorption print here. So, I mean, this looks pretty good, but it cuts out a massive amount of trades. I don't put a massive amount of stock into these filters. And I think my biggest conclusion here really is that it's not as easy as it looks to do these kind of filters, right? So what I would do going forward, if I wanted to improve this method, is I would probably conclude that there might be an advantage to looking for absorption on the level. And I would probably go in and do a little bit more manual backtesting. So this is manual in a sense that I did it manually, but it is quite mechanical in the sense that we are, adding up each print and doing it in a way that a computer could do it. I think I would just use this to nudge me in the direction of, it kind of looks like you want absorption at the level. Let's go in a little bit deeper. Let's look a little bit more closely, a little bit more discretion, and see if we can figure something out here. I wouldn't make any massive conclusions. If you did want to keep doing this mechanically, what I would do is take this as the, what do they call it? Like, they do a thing where they have one test that's of 80% of the data, and then they use like 20% of the data to do like an extra test once you've got all the parameters using the 80, so you don't like curve fit stuff basically. So you could look at 2026 with these settings, but I do think we're perhaps filtering out too many trades with some of these. So I don't know how much of it is overfitting or that sort of thing, but I guess my conclusion really, which is kind of the conclusion of pretty much everything we test on the channel, is it's never as simple as these content creators say, right? Like if some guy goes, oh, this is strategy and you just do this, you just add this to it. Like it's never that simple if you're doing discretionary trading. So yeah, take care with this. If you do want to look for absorption on the level, that's probably where I would start if you're going to do the testing yourself. And yeah, not too much of a conclusion here. One other thing I would consider doing is, to me, this is kind of a little bit of an arbitrary breakout, right? Like I get that it's statistically significant and it's been done over many years and proved to have an edge and so on, right? But I don't like that it's so arbitrary. Like it's just the first 15-minute window. No matter what happens in that window, we're looking at the breakout of that. And obviously you can do the same thing for the first 5 minutes, the first 10 minutes, the first 15 minutes, the first 30 minutes, the first hour, and so on, right? And you can look at it and compare it. If you wanted to be very rigorous with this sort of thing, what I would probably do is try and repeat the findings of whatever you find using the 15-minute breakout on the 5-minute, on the 30-minute, on the hour, and just see if everything matches up, aligns. And then you've got a bit more data that supports your hypothesis. Obviously, we've only got a year's worth of data here for the specific order flowy backtesting I've done here. So you would want to go back and do more of that. And I think you could do this with a computer as well. So yeah, anyway, I'm waffling too much. Thanks for watching. No major conclusions, but